if we're dealing with RAID 1. So with that, our first topic today is, Mikhail, tell us about your topic, ORS for feedback.
All right, so that's something we've been not very responsive on. Part of the thing is that this is actually like impacted a lot by the refactor we're doing with all the RCL and moving to one participant per context. So I think we should not like make the final decision on this right now, but it's just to like have it on our mind. The idea was that for mostly the micro ROS people, but anyone that wants to work on platforms that don't necessarily have a file system or environment. Right now, we added a lot of these utilities in RCL, and so the request was to move all that out of RCL. And right now, only security stuff is using environment variable in RCL, and so the idea was to move that elsewhere.
You mean kind of like RCutils?
Yeah, so the proposal is proposing to putting in RCutils because that's where originally, like, I mean, that's the reason that I created this RCutil package in the first place, was to place all these utilities, file system, and things like that. I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to help for people targeting other systems, because RCutil is kind of like the lowest dependency you can have. But so one of the proposals that was in that discussion was to, instead of pushing everything down to RCutil, if there is anything ROS specific in there, which will need to be determined on the final state just before Foxy, it shouldn't be in RCutil, because there is no ROS concept in RCutil. It's supposed to be a C utility, like set of utilities that are like ROS independent. And if that's the case, we need to put it elsewhere. Elsewhere could be another package in the RCL repository, which would be RCL_security or RCL underscore, I don't know, like something semantically correct, and move that out of RCL, but like that would still live close to RCL.
And I'm not quite clear on the justification for moving it out of RCL in the first place. You mentioned it was for like something like micro ROS, but that's not completely clear to me. Can you expand on that a little bit?
But to be very clear, I'm not really like sure, because it seems that this discussion happened between like
it's split
Proxima and Open Robotics.
Okay.
And one day we just had this like poke, like it just appeared on the agenda of the working group saying, hey, security guys should decide that. And so I'm not entirely clear how moving it would help. My guess is that the micro ROS guys would like to use RCL as is, but they would have their own set of underlying things to be able to do like micro RMW, and so I guess that they would like to use the RCL interface, and they don't care what dependencies we have under RCL, because they would use their own stuff instead. But having it baked in RCL is a problem for them.
Hey guys,
sorry, go ahead.
It's Roger Strain with Southwest Research, representing GVSC. I actually had looked at this issue beforehand, and I mean, it looks like part of the reason they're wanting to move it is because the security stuff actually specifically goes down and talks to the file system, and some of the platforms they're trying to get RCL running on just flat out don't have a file system to compile. You know, there's nothing there to support that. So I think the reason they're wanting to get that out is to provide some support to those incredibly small architectures that just don't even have the concept.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the same for the environment variable. Like they don't have an environment that can provide them environment variable.
Ah, very interesting. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
So that's why they wanted to move it to a place that they would not compile against. Then how they're actually like scoping out RCutils from RCL is another question. I don't know. They must have a mock of RCutil for whatever they do. But at the end of the day, I think that like I just wanted to poke if people are fine moving that into another package, and are fine having a discussion once all the context stuff has landed to see what is the best place to have it.
Yeah, I definitely think it needs to wait until after that all lands. But I don't see any. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-contained. You know, I don't really have any strong feelings about where it should live.
Yeah, especially because now it's going to be a very tiny amount of code. Like before it was a big amount of code, but now we've been simplifying it a lot.
Yeah.
So it's very tiny.
Sid, do you have any thoughts on that?
So my only thought is how I thought that's what the have security compile option was for. I mean, I thought
this is for RCL, not for individual DDS implementations or RW. Yeah.
So the CMake option.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting point. That is another option. We could add those to RCL and give the ability to disable them.
Yeah. I mean, because essentially that's why, as I understand it, that's why that option exists, is to get rid of all the overhead if you don't want like OpenSSL and stuff like that.
Yeah, so one of the differences is that like these options came up from the various RMW implementations, which is basically Connext. It doesn't matter because it provides their own set of precompiled libraries. And then for FastRTPS, they decided to add an option in their CMake called security on. And there is no ROS package actually using it. The only reason like there is this CMake option that is being passed is to compile FastRTPS. And now Cyclone DDS came up with a function that does the same thing but is named differently. Yeah. So now we're going to have to pass that to Cyclone. Well, at least
thankfully that one defaults to on, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. That's actually very good. And so in the end, we could definitely have a CMake option in the ROS stack itself. Yeah. And we should just see how it will fit together, because I see that, like, for example, RCL-TPP has another approach to allow people to compile in or out features. And I would like to see what the status on that is, because, for example, they have an option to like not compile in parameters. Like if you want a static system, you should not have any parameter related things, either at runtime, but even in your stack, like in your compile libraries. And so maybe see how they do it and try to align with that. And maybe a CMake option is the answer. I mean, I just don't know how they're doing it right now.
Yeah. So that just strikes me. But the more I think about it, the idea of pulling security options out of RCL and isolating them, actually, I kind of like that idea. It seems like it would just simplify things a bit.
It also gives us a place to put, like, I mean, we're going to talk about logging in a second, but parsing those logging XML files, right? Yeah. It gives us a common place to put things like that.
Yeah, I just know I found, like, in the last month or so, just trying to unravel all kinds of stuff in RCL that's really not related to security. It's pretty heavy. It'd be nice to separate it out. So.
All right, sounds good. So we'll put it out and we'll decide where once the rest lands.
Yeah, and I think it's worth kind of keeping an eye on whether or not we want a CMake option that's a little bit more global than just the way we use it now, so that you can actually maybe easier support an environment that just doesn't want security and it's really explicit. So.
Okay, I think we've concluded that discussion point. Jeremy, can you talk us through security logging?
Yeah, I'll do my best. So we'd like to discuss about the security logging plugin for FastRTPS that we are currently working with. That's a collaborative effort with eProsima. And well, first let me start by sharing the design document link that is already given in the working group agenda. That will give you a bit of background about it. So the rationale is that we want to have access to security events, loggings about those events in a normalized fashion, standardized fashion, so that we can, act upon it. Our first idea and let's say midterm goal is to have those event logs logged into syslog, so that we can use well-established CM tools to process them and have information and enable some other tooling out of it. The logging plugin is actually one of the security plugins defined by the DDS specification, but unlike the 3 that are already implemented, this one is optional, and that's probably why it hasn't been implemented yet. So we are tackling this work first in FastRTPS and soon enough in the other DDS implementations. You will notice in the document that this work is threefold. So first we have to implement the actual plugin in the DDS implementation in FastRTPS. Then we have to bridge it with ROS to interface it with ROS, and that's done at the RMW FastRTPS level. And finally, we are also easing the use or the enablement of security logging with the SROS2 CLI tool. I should have shared. Yeah, let me share the related pull request as well. So we have started discussing this work already on the working group meeting room, matrix room. And now that we are getting closer to a functional proof of concept, I guess, and we kindly ask for your thought and reviews and think about it. I just sent 3 links. They are the ongoing pull request for FastRTPS, to RMW FastRTPS, and to SROS2 CLI tools, the utilities.
Well, and to clarify, they're not actual real pull requests either. They're just what we're using to collaborate.
Well, they are pull requests, not pull requests to upstreams, I guess. Yeah. So what you might notice is that at the moment, the security plugin offers 2 possibilities. It either logs to a plain file, a TXT file, or it can also log over DDS. So not over an actual ROS2 topic, but a plain DDS topic. At the moment, we are focused on getting the logging to file working, and that's getting there. The current implementation is working and logging to files. Now we are trying to get the logging over DDS to work and hopefully get it to work before the Foxy freeze.
So I guess I read very quickly the design document. One question we had a while back when we looked at logging is how to have a uniform logging format to be able to process easily logging from various implementations. And I haven't seen anything about format itself in the document. And I just wanted to know, how does that compare to how RTI Connect formats logging, security logging events?
So that's actually a really good question, because as you mentioned, there is no predefined formatting in the specifications. So at the moment, what we have implemented in FastRTPS is a formatting that's hard-coded, if I may say so, where you get the stamps, the participant ID, domain ID, the call site, class, function, and then the actual message body. In RTPI, that's fairly similar. I don't think they are logging the domain ID, but that's pretty much similar. That's actually something we should discuss at the working group level, I guess. How we will reformat that to be useful for ROS too. I don't know if we can get to an agreement at the DDS level, because since there is nothing in the specification, everyone's going to try to push for their own formatting, I guess. But maybe we can get some.
The spec is a little more prescriptive when it comes to the DDS topic, right? Where it talks about where you
the
need to put
topic,
this
yeah,
information, but actually logging to a file, yeah.
No, but I mean, even the body of the message is not defined. The formatting of the message,
right.
the header.
From what I remember when we chatted about it with Ty and Ruffin, like I don't know, maybe 6 months or a year ago, we floated the idea of actually contacting RTI and Hiposima to have an idea of like first, because they're part of the OMG working group, so they know if a more prescriptive format is being defined, because they've been working on version 1.2 for a long time, and maybe there is information in there, or just to know if they know better than us, let's say. If the feeling we get from them is like, well, we don't care, we do our things, and we'll have to find a way above. But if we, like in this case, you guys are implementing it for them, with them, but it would be good to make sure that it would be compliant with the spec or wherever the DDS vendors want to go after, to make sure you don't have to revisit it.
Absolutely.
You mean if there are changes coming down the pipe to the spec?
Yeah, because I think I've seen a very, very early draft a long time ago of 1.2, but it was such a long time ago that I'm pretty sure everything changed in it. And like the guys sitting at that board, they know the exact status and they can share drafts of the specs. So we could at least have an idea of if the logging format is in the changes.
Yeah, we can shoot them an email. Although I expect they would tell us too during review.
Oh yeah, for sure. If you discussed with them, like maybe they would have mentioned it, like if there was something.
And yeah, I don't think that will change much implementation-wise. It's in which order you put strings together. So.
No, it just means that if everyone's doing different things, then the demangling side is going to get extra complex. Yeah.
I think we should feel comfortable proposing something like using common event format, or what is it, the Leaf extended event format. But we should propose something.
Yeah, but from our original idea and midterm goal, and as mentioned in the design doc, what we are planning on to have a standardized fashion of logging is to actually have a third-party item that will listen to the DDS security logging plugin topic and demangle that and publish it to syslog. And that's the level at which we are going to act upon the logging.
Yeah, so like
totally
that will be common event format, for example.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. So just a few more things about the ROS side, I guess. On the RMW side of things, so that's valid for fast RTPS, but also for the other DDS implementation. Logging is going to be enabled through a simple XML file that will be present in the root security directory. If that XML file exists, then logging is supposed to be enabled. If it doesn't exist, then it's supposed to be disabled. And that XML file is fairly simple. You have an example in the design document where at the moment it defines essentially 3 variables. One that is the absolute path to the log file, the verbosity of the logging, and whether or not to distribute the logging over DDS. So that's the second part of the second feature of the plugin that is yet to be finished. And there is an actual fourth item, that's the quality of service of the DDS topic, which is parameterized in ROS terms. So that's the cost as defined in RCL. And that's going to be, that's going to be optional at the moment. So I guess we're going to go with a default or with the default cost setting. And this can be further tuned by the user simply defining these XML tags, I guess.
And so I see in your example, you have an XML file and a DDS XML file above. And so I just wanted to know in what order would those be processed? If someone provides an XML file for their DDS application and we provide an XML file on top for security logging, which one will override the other?
That's a good question. I guess at the moment it would be the ROS XML that overrides the plain DDS XML.
Yeah, I think if you don't specify quality of service for logging, now I'm falling back to RTI here because this is what I developed this with, the RMW side of it anyway. If you don't specify quality of service, they fall back to whatever the default is for the participant that's being used. And so my understanding is that by specifying this XML file, you're changing essentially, you can change the default for the participant, in which case if you don't specify one in this logging file, then you might end up changing that as well. But then if you specify in this logging file, since it twiddles the properties directly, it seems to make sense that would override.
Right, that makes sense. If any bit is not specified, it would fall back to the default. So for example, if you don't specify some part of the QoS, or like not the entire QoS, you would take the default set of QoS, but override the rest of the logging.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And to be noted also that we plan on supporting profiles in the QoS, such as sensor data, etc. Those predefined ROS QoS.
Oh, that's a tricky word. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And then like which string to use exactly or whatever, like we just try to use whatever is defined in the ROS stack. It's just the word profile itself is being a bit overloaded because that's how we define security profiles, which are the set of permissions that an entity can have, and so it can become very quickly confusing, I think.
That's true.
Yeah, take a look at the XML. See, I mean, it's easy to change any of that, you know. It's a good point about profiles. But I really don't know what else we'd call it either. So please do take a look at that.
Yeah, that's William always says the two hardest thing in computer science is off by one and naming. I mean.
But yeah, regarding that though, so we use like the strings right now. What we use is essentially the part of the string that isn't, you know, RMW underscore profile underscore whatever. But then if you specify a profile and then specify further items as well, then what it does is it takes the profile and initializes the quality of service using the profile, and then any further settings you specify overwrite that particular part of the profile. So that seems to make sense. Yeah. Okay. Good.
I mean, that's how it works elsewhere in ROS. Like if in RCLPy you just get a default QoS profile and then like you can use that one directly or you can modify it, and the field you don't touch keep the default values. So
okay, perfect.
That's fine.
Okay. Following the design doc,
I guess there is just one concern I have with the overall like XML thing is we are really overloading a format that is specified by the OMG spec that allows to define exactly the same set of values. And so that can be something tricky to keep in sync. Like, I mean, we need to be aware that like we're designing another format that should be able to apply to non-DDS, but that is like kind of a duplicate of what exists in OMG.
Yeah, if you like, it's the ROS side of things. So that's the ROS XML file, I guess.
Which, right? I mean, we sort of talked about this in the past. Like, if we, I think we have agreed that if we stick to ROS concepts, then if a non-DDS middleware is used, right, then those should map just the same way they map already, right? As long as we don't leak in DDS specific things, I think it will work. I mean, assuming that this thing supports security logging, and I mean, like, there's a lot of hand wavy stuff there, but at least the terminology used there should apply the same way it applies.
Yeah, totally. And I agree. That's what we agreed on in the past. So it's just like now that I see both of them side by side, I'm like, like there is actually
no, you're right. There's
nothing more in the ROS,
overlap.
and that's why it makes me question it.
Yeah. No, there's definitely overlap. Although I will point out that the spec, now correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, but I don't think the spec actually specifies an XML format. It just says these things. Yeah. So every implementation supports this in different ways, or not at all until we add it. And so that's why we're adding a common. We are trying to make the common ROS side here, and then each middleware will flip the knobs appropriately.
If you look at the first XML, that's faster TPS specific. That wouldn't work with another implementation.
Just to give a warning, 2 minutes on this topic before we go to the last topic.
Okay, then let me quickly overview the SROS2 utilities. Simply to mention that the XML file, the second XML file in the design doc, so the ROS side of things, we want it easy to be generated so that the user has little effort to make, and to do so we are proposing to introducing a new verb to the ROS2 security CLI tool. That's going to be called enable logging. You pass it a mandatory key store, so your security root folder. If you only pass the key store, then it's going to enable logging for all of the identities, all of the nodes that are defined in the store. But then you can do that at individual identities. So you specify a particular node for which you want to enable logging, and you can further configure with flags to give the absolute path to the log file, the verbosity, and the distribute switch. And I guess that pretty much wraps the ongoing work. Again, the links to this design doc and to all the ongoing work on GitHub are in the working group agenda. I've shared them. Feel free to review them and start, throwing reviews at us.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks for your attention.
Last topic, Victor.
Hey there, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Again.
All right. Well, real quick. So this week we are doing an exercise of week of UR packs, Universal Robots packs. So just, I guess it was just heads up and shouting out for anyone out there with experience with this particular robot. It's widely used. Feel free to contribute, send some bucks. We're dedicating engineering resources to the triaging this week for that. So yeah, hopefully something interesting will come out of it. The ROS side of it is not so involved. We are this week specifically triaging bugs, including all types of flaws, frankly speaking, bugs, vulnerabilities, weaknesses that affect the robot directly. But there will be a future release for ROS related stuff.
Man,
Cool.
That's really cool. I read the article earlier today. I already went to just look at the various bugs you already reported. That's a really cool initiative.
Cool. Yeah, we've got a history with UR. Things are getting on the right spot. As of now, we hope to be a bit more pushy with some other vendors, as we discussed throughout the last conferences and events we've participated in. Definitely, vendors need to kind of like get more aware of the insecurities they have. So hopefully we can have more of these things in the future.
I don't know if it's an Easter egg for you, but tomorrow on April Fool's, they are doing a webinar on safety of UR robots.
Well, cool, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll post the notes and the video up on the wiki later. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jeremiah.
Everybody.
That was nice.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care.